And we are live. All right. So, welcome everyone. Today is our first edition of the Trigger Thursday. And we are streaming live in the group because this was announced a little bit last minute. So, I figured we want to show this to more people. And also, since we just went through a holiday recently, it brought up a lot of triggers. And Gail had posted a wonderful post this week, and I said, I think that would be a very good topic for us to discuss. And I know Leslie also has a lot that she can discuss. I think all of us are affected different ways for holidays. So if you see this comment, I will go and try to see the comments in the Facebook Live as we are talking. But if you're just hopping on, hello, happy Thursday. I hope you guys are having a great week. We are excited to be sharing some tips that has helped us with triggers around different holidays. So maybe once you come in, let us know, is there a specific holiday for you that is harder? Because there's some that are super exciting and fun, and then there's some for many different reasons that are very difficult, and you are not alone feeling that way. So I would like to bring up Gail and just have her share a little bit about what she can share with us, how she's helping herself to go through some triggering thoughts and triggering events because of maybe her childhood or different way her life has shaped us. So, and then feel free, guys, in the comments to share, ask questions, and also then we're going to hear from Leslie, and I'll share a little bit later too. So Gail, I see you are unmuted, and I would love to hear from you about your trigger Thursdays or holiday triggers. I think it's a big topic. Many people, it's a taboo subject, and I think we need to just rip the band-aid off and talk about it today.
For sure. Thanks, Sonia. Well, as we all know, Mother's Day was on Sunday, and I spent most of my day crying on and off throughout the day. And basically, my triggers, thinking about growing up with a mom that, was an alcoholic, and me not feeling good enough because, how many times that I asked my mom to stop drinking and she didn't. So I felt like not deserving. But the big one that I was triggered on Sunday was me as a mom. And, when I look back at when my kids were little, and I was angry, I was sad, I was stressed, I was overwhelmed, and I spent so much time with my kids, and but I was physically there, but I was not emotionally there. And so every Mother's Day I think back to those times when they were little, and I always had a hard time, and not forgiving myself for that. And so this Mother's Day was no different, except for the fact that in the midst of one of my crying times throughout that day, my oldest boy Dawson called me, because he's living with his dad going to school. And I tried not to, show that emotion, or let him hear it on the phone, but he picked up on it. And then, the emotions, the crying started again. And I apologized to him, and I told him that, the big thing for me was because for years with my mom, I felt that I was at fault, and that I was the reason, I wasn't deserving. She didn't love me, and so on. So it was very important for me to tell my son on Sunday that, it wasn't his fault. It had nothing to do with him. It had all to do with me. And sorry, he said, he tells me, he says, Mom, he says, I love you. He said, and I don't even think about, back those times. I think about right now, and, how you are an awesome mom, and, how I love my brothers, and how close we are, and so on. And later on that night, I had a talk with my other two boys about it. And, you know, we, you know, so it kind of brought me that peace. And, you know, it was, and every year that I've gone through that, but this one was like, okay, you know, Gail, you have to let that go. And we know that, you know, triggers are because there's something deep within you that hasn't healed. And I knew that it wasn't healed. And I'm not saying that I'm completely healed right now, but from where I was Sunday until I actually talked to my boys, I'm a much better person, and I feel like the weight of the world has been lifted, because my boys, they understand. And you know, it's like I used to always think, are my boys thinking about all those times? Like, are they going back into the past, and are they thinking about, you know, all the angry, you know, the times when mom was angry and the times that mom, you know, wasn't there for them emotionally? And, you know, I mean, they had, you know, they had a great home. They had, you know, they had food, they had all that physical stuff, but they didn't have me. And so that was my concern was, you know, are they thinking about all of that? And you know, and after talking to them, and I realized that no, they're not, you know, and they understand that, you know, at that, you know, that place that I was at, that you know, that's not where I am right now. And you know, sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, but I'm happy to say that, you know, that day, you know, talking, so if I would suggest, you know, a strategy or some way to, you know, to deal with some of your triggers, would definitely be to talk to someone who who's affected by that. Like, so for example, you know, with me, with my boys, that's what I kept constantly thinking about, that it's, you know, my boys are thinking about, you know, the past, and, you know, how I wasn't a good mom, and I didn't want them growing up thinking that I didn't love them, or that they weren't deserving of the mom that I should have been back then. But you know what, the thing is that we do things what we know of at that time. And I'm happy to say that I've grown so much since the kids were little. And I mean, I can't redo it. And that's the thing. I mean, we think about the past, and, you know, we want to go back, and we'd love to go back and change it, but we can't. So, I mean, you know, your past is, and I never look at, you know, all my choices as mistakes. I look at them as learning experiences. You know, they're mistakes if you keep doing them over and over and over, but they're learning experiences when you look at them and say, whoa, you know what, I don't want to do that anymore. I, you know, I want to be that better person, so I want to change. So, you know, and that's the way that I look at it. So if, you know, for whoever's listening to this, and whoever has, you know, feelings of regret and so on, I would suggest that, you know, you just work through it. And if there's somebody that you need to speak to, you need to forgive them, or, you know, you need to ask for forgiveness yourself, or so on. But forgiveness is definitely the big thing. And that's what I would say, that that would be the greatest and the best start, would be to reach out to someone. Because the thing is that if I didn't speak up about that, my boys would never know that I was feeling that way. And I had to help them understand that the person that I am right now is totally different than the person that I was back then. And I think it's made my boys and I much closer, and I love them fiercely.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Gail, for sharing that. And I can relate to you saying that you wish you would have been a different mom, certain things. And I think that it's what shapes us into where we're at. It's experience. I don't, I can't say regret some of the things that I've done in my life. Some things I wish I would have done differently, but then it wouldn't have brought me here today. And the fact that you were able to be open and share that to your kids, I've been the person that's always said I'm going to be very open to my kids about everything, because I was 13. I had no idea what periods were, what sex was, what alcohol or drugs were. All I knew was don't smoke cigarettes, don't smoke cigarettes. And that's all my parents kept telling me when I was young. And they're lucky they didn't brainwash me to be a cigarette smoker, because that's how the brain works. And I often say, oh, if I'd have to start over, and here I am, I have a 1-year-old and a 10-year-old. So I just started over 10 years later. And I remember a lot of times, and I was sad, I was depressed, I was not in a good place 10 years ago after I had my first son. I was heavily medicated, always trying to find the problem, and really was the solution I needed to find. And I was a zombie for a while. I was so heavy, like on meds, that I kept staying in bed. I was crying. I wasn't me. I couldn't see the beauty in the day. And I always felt like, man, this is affecting my son. Like, he's gonna get all of my bad feeling, because the kids get your habits. They follow what they see, how you're, teaching them, and they do what they see, not what you tell them to do. And I always was worried that he would be affected that way. And now I have my other son, and I know in 10 years from now I'm still going to say, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have. And my patience is a lot better. I communicate a lot better too. I'm very open with my 10-year-old. Like, sometimes I think a little bit too much, but at the same time, I wish I would have been talked to about different things, because I learned the hard way. And at 14, I moved out of my parents' house. I went from not knowing what a period was and all of that to like moving out with a drug dealer and his 5 roommates, which was pretty much a whorehouse, pardon the French, but it is, it was a traumatic experience for me. And I spent one Christmas in a foster home. And I know that whether it's Mother's Day or Christmas or different things like that, a lot of people have certain holidays we get triggered and we wish we would have done things differently. But I know your boys know you love them, and the fact that you were open and just tell them that, I think that speaks volume. And the fact that they came back to you and, say they understand, because sometimes kids can blame the parents, and I'm guilty of that in a way. And that's one of my triggers, one of my things I need to stop blaming, because I was 95 to 100% in school. Like, I was a grade A student, I was vice president of the school, I was pushed to be go in all the sports. You have to wear a ponytail, your shirt tucked in, not religious wise, but just that's how I was raised. And I always said, I felt like I wasn't able to be who I truly was. And then when I spent that 1 year Christmas with another family, it really made me realize, that this is not what I want to do. And even today, there's food choices from my parents, because they didn't know any better. And that's the thing, we don't know any better. We give our kids what we think is the best because that's what we were taught. And when you look at our grandparents and grandparents, their lifestyle is not like ours today. Like, what we're living today is not normal for my grandparents. And then you have to know that, like, my grandma, you could smoke in schools and in hospitals back then. Everyone was smoking cigarettes because it was cool. And then when my parents raised us, it was McDonald's is cool, and then it was fast food. And I remember going back, like, my parents were business owners. They had a convenience store. So it was either daycare, or when I got older enough, I was babysitting my brother. So every day we wouldn't see our parents until like 6 p.m. at night. And then it was do your homework, go take your bath and go to bed, or do your sports, whatever you had to do. And then I would have to feed my brother and myself, which was pizza pockets, nuggets, those meatballs, gravy meatball. Like, it was just fast processed food that is my body doesn't really like today. It can't handle because it got too much of it. And I blamed my parents for so long until I realized it's not their fault, because that's what they were grown in. So as we grow, that's as long as you understand, and you can always be a different person. And that's one thing I keep telling my husband, because he always brings back you are like that. I know how you are. You used to be like that. And if anyone watching today, just know you can be a very different person this minute than you were a minute ago. It's your choice for you to decide. And if, for me, anything that has triggered me, I write a lot of things and I never send it to people. But for me, that's a therapy. Sometimes I have gone live and ranted or just share what I really felt. But most of the biggest thing for me was to write it down, get it off my chest, and then move on. So maybe you need to write a letter to yourself a letter to your kids, a letter to your parents, a letter to the person that might be triggering you. And if it's a holiday that is very hard for you, we're not telling you to be an alien and have no feelings, because we all have feelings. But I know that I'm going to bring up Leslie, and Leslie's going to talk about maybe different holidays and different triggers too. But for me, nature and writing has been the biggest thing. And always try to find a positive in any situation, like, and not to blame and point fingers unless you walked in that person's shoes. So and I understand some parents and some situations are very different. So but I was raised in a very good family. I can't complain. I love my parents. They're hardworking. They wanted the best for me, but what they wanted for me was not what I wanted for myself. And I wish there would have been more communication. And I was with them in Florida a few months ago, and we had the first conversation ever, of a real conversation of what a daughter and parents should have. And my dad felt responsible for some of the things, and he felt that I was saying things against him, and that wasn't it. So communication goes a long way. So if you feel something, let the person know. The worst they can do is, ignore or shut you off or whatever, but they might not be open to hear about it. But usually if you talk to them properly and approach them in a safe way and respectful way, it can be a beautiful conversation. Leslie, what would you have to bring up on this topic today for us?
Wow, that's a lot. I'm like, I could feel my heart pounding with like both of your conversations. Like, it's definitely triggering emotions, of course. And I think a lot of people have a hard time. I noticed that somebody that just came into the group commented on especially the Trigger Thursdays and the initial video of that. And she said, oh, this is going to be a difficult one, but, maybe it's something I need to work through. And so I know it's a lot. It's different for every single person. And when Gail was talking about Mother's Day being a trigger for her, like for me, it's been like every single holiday, every single occasion has been a big trigger, in the sense of, I'll try not to get too emotional here. Sorry.
And this are Trigger Thursdays, so it is normal for you to feel your emotions, and that's why we're doing this in a safe place. So if you need to take your breath, you can.
So for me, it's been, my dad was an alcoholic, but as a child, I had a really great upbringing. I'm really lucky that, he never abused us. He never did any of these things. Luckily, our upbringing was mostly on the weekends, so there was a lot of drinking on the weekends. But I remember every holiday was just based on alcohol. When we go to my grandmother's for Christmas, it was just like the table was just completely filled. And of course, right? And I'm not saying that that's not okay, right? But some people always just take it too far. And I felt like embarrassed sometimes when I was around my dad when I was a little kid on weekends, right? Because people would make fun of him for being drunk. And, I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry, because this obviously needs to come out, because we all have something bothering, and it's hard for, I don't even think you knew you were going to talk about this today, so no preparation. So it's normal for you to let it out, and you're getting hearts and love from the group. So girl, we're here and we feel you.
And I think it's important because I grew up in Newfoundland in a very Catholic home, Catholic Irish, and we grew up with, like, you don't talk about anything. Everything got swept under the rug. It didn't exist. If you don't talk about it, it didn't exist. So anytime anything came up, it was like, shh, don't tell anybody, And so as an adult, and especially having my kids surrounded by it, it really affected me in a different sense because I'm protecting them now, you know what I mean? So it was, then it came into behaviors as my dad aged and I wasn't able to work, then he became more like, it was just one thing after the other, like driving impaired and just so many different things that were just so hard on our family. And I just became this person that was like, you know what, I can't hold it anymore. I'm going to talk about it. I confronted him and just said, you know, I have a picture of your license plate. If I catch you drinking and driving, or if I hear that you've left the house and drive, you know, I'm going to call the police. And it came to that point that I'm sorry, but tough love is love. And I had to make that choice because what happened was, you know, our family feel like, don't talk about it, it doesn't exist or whatever, or, you know, and the problem is that if he had to get in an accident, so if it was like a family like me and my kids in a car and my dad plowed into them and had an accident, then that's not just my dad's responsibility. This is everybody's responsibility. This is like, you know, the fact that we know about it is my responsibility, that I didn't come forth to, you know, take that responsibility on. And you know, so as going through, like, it was always, my dad grew up in a family of 15 kids. And, you know, I know it was a very abusive home and he went through a lot of stuff. So talking about triggers, it was just really weird because dad wasn't an every single day drinking, like, you know, alcoholic. It was, he would go through waves of really good times. And then he would go through like really like hard times, right? And so I knew there was triggers, and I'd say to my mom, like, what happened? Like, I wish he would talk, because he didn't talk about his feelings. And, you know, you can tell that when somebody, especially men, they hold these things in, and it comes out in different ways, like the alcohol or any of that. And she said, you know, yeah, like there was a lot of really hard things, and that she didn't even know as well. So you know, Christmases were really hard. It would be like weeks leading up to Christmas that we would just be like, oh, what's going to happen? Like, you know, and it was almost like manifesting it too. You know what I mean? We were like preparing ourselves, but couldn't get prepared, and trying to not focus on it too much as well. But, you know, my dad passed in September, and I can't help but think and say to my mom, like, holy crap, like, if he was alive right now during this COVID thing, like, we would be so stressed out because we couldn't keep, like, couldn't keep in the house, you know what I mean? Like, he was brutal for that. And yeah, it's just every single holiday and or birthdays or certain things were always a trigger for us, and alcohol. And I know that, like I said, as like with having young kids, became very protective over that as well. And unfortunately, kind of what I had to do to make some peace with it was to not attend all of the events, and to limit my visits, and you know, to do certain things like that, which is not the most ideal. But my dad wasn't, you know, he wasn't really, especially if he was drinking, it wasn't really something that he would be open to talk about an issue or anything like that. So yeah, I just kind of felt that we kind of, you know, just stay away from there. It's like, if I'm not there, then it won't trigger me or whatever, even though I know it's, you know, not creating the solution side. But, you know, we had to do whatever protects us. And that's way I kind of felt to protect me and my kids, is just to limit ourselves within that situation. So I mean, that's going to be different for everybody, especially if you do have somebody that you can speak to. But I know addictions is very hard, because when addictions fall into place, like, there is no reasoning with these people when they're in these situations. So, you know, you can say whatever's on your mind. Believe me, I've said some crap to my dad that I never ever thought I would say, but you know, it's they're not in that position. It's not like I know my dad felt really bad, you know what I mean? Like he didn't feel great about situations. He always felt ashamed, but he still wouldn't talk about it. So yeah, you can see like it's definitely a trigger. And even, you know, certain times when I'm around parties and stuff, I'm not a huge drinker anymore. I do consider myself more of a cannabis. I'd rather have a puff than have a drink. But even when I'm around parties and you're around those people who are really like obnoxiously drunk and like in your face and falling around, like it definitely is a trigger for me as well. And I'm like, okay, time to go. So I mean, I know that I'm not the only one in this situation. Alcohol definitely, and drugs, of course, affects so many. And I think that it's like anything, you know, we're trying to break the stigma on mental health. We're trying to break the stigma on cannabis. We're trying to break so many stigmas right now, which means that the more we talk about it, the more it's open that, you know, to talk about solutions and to come to that inner peace with people and know that you're not alone, because it affects so many of us. I know that even as a hairstylist, when I talk about it with my clients, because I became very open behind a chair, you know, my people used to say, how's your dad doing? Because my dad was constantly like, you know, and at the end he was breaking his hips and it was just a nightmare. So, you know, I just feel that if I can be open and talk about that and share my story with other people, then, and if that helps one person, then I feel, you know, that's awesome. So thank you. I had a little meltdown, but I got through it. And yeah, like Sonia said, we just decided to jump on here and talk about this. So it was definitely not prepared, but yeah, you just got it. Well, I had to follow with both of you talking leading up, so it definitely brought up some emotions for me. But thank you for everybody for listening and being in this group and participating. And you know, we're so supportive of each other, and I just love that we have a nice community like this.
We do. Thanks for being vulnerable, and you're not alone. I just can tell just from the people watching in the group. Cindy says she can relate. There's Lou that says her dad was an alcoholic too, and she said that she hated him. Let me see that. I told my dad I hated him, and he stopped drinking after that. So sometimes some people needs to hear it, and it's gonna really open up their mind. And it's also a timing thing. And sometimes you're gonna try, and it's just some people, they just can't. And I've been through drug addiction. I've took like drugs from 14 till I was 24, 23, like, you know, heavy drugs. And I'm not a big alcohol drinker either. I love my cannabis. You know, that I won't lie about that. I like to have a drink here and there, but I've always been the one that someone needs to be sober. And Christmases for us was, I had an uncle that used to drink heavily, and he was even like flirting with me. Like that was just like, you know, it was just sickening. I wasn't comfortable around him when he was drinking, and it made Christmas weird. It made me not want to go. And we had a somewhat normal family, and I think everyone has these little things. And yeah, definitely. I know for me, my parents don't drink, so it's different, but my aunts and uncles do, and some of them were in heavy drugs too. My dad seen his brother OD in his arms. He was bringing him to hospital thinking he was dying. So for him, there's trauma for everyone. And like Sheena was saying, for guys, it's very difficult for men, like you said, to open up and talk about feelings. My husband, for example, his dad has never said he loves him. Men that age were brought up in tough love kind of love, and like there's a lot of people we know that either they were beaten or you know, treated in a different way, and there was no like the couple kissing and hugging and showing that affection back then. That was not normal. And when you go through things like that, you want to be the opposite. I know for a long time I said, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like example, when I said my parents were not open with me, I've always said I want to be the opposite. My husband tells my sons he loves them every day, he hugs them, he's affectionate. So you can be the parent that you didn't have, and sometimes that makes you the best person in the world for that, but you're not alone. So I know there's going to be more comments because this live is going to be in the group. I see Marcella's in there saying you're strong. Nicole saying thank you for sharing. Yvonne is saying my mom was as well and almost killed her, and she quit now, going on 3 years sober, and she's got her mom back. So sometimes some of us will get that and sometimes not, right? So and then Nicole says, I didn't have my dad, but I did have my uncle who lived with us for a very long time as a kid, did drugs and alcohol. He burnt her kitchen down, fell asleep on the couch, totally high on God knows what. So she was a kid, and when that happened. So, and that can trigger you for the rest of your life. So I think it's great that we're here and vulnerable and talking about that, and that's why I wanted to have this group private, because I wouldn't want my whole family to listen to this. And even if my mom is in this group, she knows that what I'm saying is with love, and she probably was affected by that. And if you have people that are in your family, most people don't bring their families in this group for that reason if they have that issue. But I just want to say that I love both of you for sharing that. I know we had other people that wanted to come on and share. So I think maybe we would have to have another Zoom and hear from others where they can share their tips, or even in the comments, let us know what are your tools, because this is what it's for. Yes, it's to talk about our triggers, but it's also to give you guys solutions, because we don't want to trigger you and then make you all feel sad and then, okay, bye, have a good day. So we want to exactly, right? And that's not her purpose. Her purpose is to talk about it and say it's normal, and then just give some gifts and resources. And so other than talking and communicating and writing letters or avoiding certain holidays and stuff, people that are watching, comment below what are things that has helped you, what are things that are helping you, because some people it's going to be for the rest of your life. You're going to be triggered, and some can be good triggers. Like I was even telling them, for me, for Christmas, I was a kid that my parents, it was like a commercial Hallmark Christmas. Like we had hundreds of dollars of gifts under the tree, where I felt bad going back to school after Christmas break, knowing some kids had no gifts at all. And I was happy and grateful. But for me, and I had a Christmas 4 years ago where my kids, I only had one, I had to order Christmas gifts off of the Wish website, where it takes 3 months to get to you. And it's very cheap stuff. And I had no money, and I was too embarrassed to ask for help. And I felt ashamed, because I remembered that my parents had the big, nice, perfect tree with all the gifts. It would be hours for us to open them. And I feel we were spoiled, and I don't want my kids to Christmas should be about loving. And the last 2 or 3 Christmases, like this year, we didn't even went to see family, because I felt everyone wants to get there late and everyone wants to leave early, because there's been death in the family, there's people not there anymore, there's people that are stuck in the same mindset. So it's not fun anymore for me. And no offense if there's some of my family in this, but if you were there at Christmases, I'm sure you feel that too. I want to be around people that wants to be around us and that we value and love. And for Christmas now, I'd rather, this year we blessed another family. We went to the homeless shelter, the youth center, I believe, not homeless center. And there was a family who they didn't have a home, and they lost their mom, and the dad was taking care of the kids. So I went and bought their kids the Christmas gift. I never got to meet them for confidentiality, but it was the first time and I want to do more next year, not just for Christmas too, but it felt amazing. And I went there when I was young and I was in drugs at the youth center. So I said, if you need someone to come and talk to you about that, I'd love to talk to kids. And I'd like to do a topic about that, teenagers on drugs, being abused, because I was there and I overcame that. And I feel a lot of people, especially now, they're on pills on a lot of pills that they could cope by talking to someone like me and like yourself. So I don't want to make this too long either. And I know that there's probably more comments in here. And there's Jamie that hopped on. She's saying forgiveness every day. It's not something you do once and it is over. The more you forgive, the easier it gets. Doesn't make it go away, but it helps. And I agree. Carla says she missed sitting in your chair telling her similar stories. So definitely, I appreciate you all for being here and listening to that, and bring your stories to us, because maybe, not maybe, I know your story will help someone too. And whether you're in that struggling phase or you are in that denial phase, because sometimes you will get through, it's like grief, right? You have all these stages, and we're here to help you guys through that. So do we have a homework for people today, guys? Do you think that we should maybe, because we want to have a call to action, not, like I said, not to finish this in a weird way, like everyone's all sad, because that's not the point. The point is to make us feel good and relieved that we talked about it and open. So Leslie, I see you unmuted yourself. Do you have any idea of what we can do for a call to action or homework?
Yeah, so I mean, like Sonia said, definitely comment in the comments below and tell your story. But if you're not ready to tell your story right now, write it down and journal it and really figure out what your triggers are. I think a lot of people don't even know what their triggers are or why they're being triggered by certain things until you dig deeper. So if you notice a certain emotion come up, even by watching this, write down what emotion you're having, and then kind of try to go through that. And I would definitely suggest just to journal it, and please feel free to reach out to anybody in this group or one of us, and share if you feel that you want to be more private. But I definitely think that, even if you, like I said, you don't feel comfortable to be public in this group with it, definitely just writing it down for yourself and going through those emotions and what that means, I think is definitely very helpful.
I agree. We're gonna also do a post. Oh, there goes the baby in the dog food bowl again. It's been his thing this week. I've seen, I think we need to have a post in the group that would be in the announcement all the time, where people, if they have a trigger, because I've seen a few people post and they wanted advice. And I think that would be a good thing, instead of having a bunch of different posts from people, because we try to have scheduled posts so people know, all right, 2-3 posts per day. But having one place, if you're struggling or if you need help or if you have a question, to go in there, and then all of us can help. So I don't know what we're going to call that post, but we're going to bring that up. And also, if you're watching the replay, feel free to share the comments, because this video is going to be there, and people are going to watch this weeks and months from now, and hopefully it's going to help them too. So we want this to be a tool for you guys. If you have people you feel that could benefit from this group, invite them to the group. Tomorrow we will have music medicine. I need to confirm with the guys just to make sure all is okay. One of them I know had sickness in the family, so I just want to make sure and confirm there wasn't anything that happened. But that's going to be awesome and a good release, definitely, and new thing for me. So with that being said, Gail, any closing words for everyone before we say bye for the day?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, like, awareness is key. It's, being aware of, how you're feeling, what you're feeling, and not just like, dismissing it and, and just, changing the subject or moving on with something else. I think, awareness, and, when we talk about triggers, and I mean, it's somewhere where you have to dig deep, because there is some healing that needs to go on. So I think, being aware of it and like sitting with it for a little while, and, questioning yourself about things and so on. Cause I know that's what helped me through it. And I mean, for me, reaching out to my boys, that's what helped me as well. But I mean, they're my children, so I felt comfortable, reaching out to them. But I mean, maybe, you can't reach out to somebody, or maybe they've passed away, because my mom died almost 15 years ago, and it was only probably about 5 years ago that I actually forgave her, because I understood where her alcoholism came from and why she did the things that she did. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about my brothers and sisters. It wasn't about my dad and how, the things that went on there. It was about her and the things that she had inside, and the things that she went through as a child. And it just spewed out into her life throughout all her years. So what I'm saying is that it's very important for us to, to deal with these triggers and to deal with our trauma, because if not, it's going to carry on, and it's going to, we're going to carry it until the day we die. And you're going to be affected by it. Your family and friends are going to be affected by it. And it is not a happy place. And when you read the comment about Lou saying that she hated, she told her dad that she hated him. I've told my mom, I told her that I hated her. I was angry with her. I was just so, as a teenager and a young child, dealing with that. And then I dealt with it all in my adulthood, even after she died. So, I mean, it is something that you can't just dismiss and think that, okay, this is something I'm going to have for the rest of my life, and I just have to, to kind of deal with it as best I can. No, you don't want to be suffering that. You don't, so when those triggers come up, you really need to dig deep, and you need to figure out what's causing it, and find ways to be able to move forward. So that's basically what I want to end with. And I've done so much growth over the years, and I know I have lots more growing to do. And I am so blessed to be working with you amazing ladies and all the people that are sharing stuff on on our group. And I know there's more growth for me, and I'm excited for all of you too.
Yes. And Leslie commented or typed inner demons, and I think a lot of us have that. And if you push things, like I say sometimes, when there's issues, push them in the box and don't deal with it, and things will go away. Sometimes that can be like life issues, but when it comes to these triggers, sometime in your life you're going to have to deal with it. And there's timing that it might not be right, and there's timing that might be like, okay, I need to do this. And if you feel like the moons are coming, which we're going to talk about, full moons, and there's sometimes that it can be better for manifesting all of these. One thing that I do, I watch a kids movie, I watch a cartoon, and I cry. I just cry it out. Most cartoons makes me cry. Or I go singing and I go outside. Last week I went outside for an hour and a half. I was shivering in my blanket. I had my karaoke microphone. The neighbors thought a cat was dying or something. They were looking, and I didn't care. I went from like Eminem to like country music to like hallelujah, and I had tears flowing, and that for me is my way of releasing. So any of these feelings, it wasn't like, oh, I'm pissed off at this. It was just like, I feel like I need to let it go. And that's been a big thing for me. So cried out. Crying is a good therapy, and sometimes talking to someone. So everyone's going to have different tips and tools. So that's why I think it's important that we all share that in the group. And my baby's full awake right now, so you're going to hear that. But I'm glad that we talked about that. I feel good. Are you guys good to close this Zoom? I don't want anyone feeling triggered, and if anybody needs to talk, reach to one of us, reach out and make friends in this group. That's what this group is all about. We haven't set the topic for the next trigger Zooms. So if you have suggestions, because I know we talked about alcoholism, I know lots of people wanted to talk about that, have someone or themselves dealing with it, drug abuse, I'll never let another guy lay hands on me. When somebody touches me here, that triggers me. I could punch someone, and this is a trigger that I need to I have my bubble, you know, and I'm working on that, on hugging, on different things. So we all have our own demons, and I think the more we talk about it, the more we're going to help people, not just ourselves but others. And I thank you for sharing that with us all today, ladies.
Awesome. Thank you.
Love you
And
guys.
Awesome.
I think that anybody that if there's anything that you specifically want to talk about, definitely reach out to one of us. And because we of course don't have the whole schedule done for the next 12 weeks, we have a lot of places to fill in the gaps. So if there's
Yeah.
suggestions that something you want to talk about, something you want to see and experience, please reach out, and we're completely open to that as well.
We are.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you, ladies,
Thank you.
for sharing this today, and have a beautiful Thursday, everyone on Facebook. We will see you guys in the group, and as always, happy, healthy, wealthy is the way to be.